Hey guys, welcome to the last lesson for this unit on quadratics. What I'm basically going to do in this lesson is I'm going to take everything we've learned, we're going to put it all together, and we're going to see how it works with word problems or real world models or examples of quadratics. So let's look at the following example. The equation shows the height of a football, y meters, x seconds after it's kicked. So y represents the height of the football, and x represents how many seconds has gone by. If you notice, we actually have this in vertex form. So that's where we're going to start. So let's answer the following questions, and we're going to just use everything we already know how to use. So what is the vertex of this equation? If you remember from our vertex form, this is h and this is k. And in the lesson, we learned that the vertex is actually the value of h and the value of k. So if we look at this, h is, in this case, positive 2, and k is positive 20. So right from the equation, we already know where the vertex is. It's at positive 2 and positive 20. The other question is, what does this mean in our real world example? So the vertex is always that highest point or lowest point of the quadratic. So in our case, this gives the highest or the maximum point, maximum height of the football. So if I asked you how high did the football get, you could say, well, the football got as high as 20 meters. I could also then say to you, well, when did that happen? When was it at its maximum? And you can say, well, it was at its maximum at 2 seconds. So this represents 2 seconds at a height of 20 meters. Okay, so that's basically what the vertex form answers, and that's how it relates to a real world example. Let's move down. What is the y-intercept of this equation, and what does that mean in our real world example? So the y-intercept comes from, we already looked at that, comes from the standard form. And I already showed you guys how to change from the vertex form to the to the standard form. So we're going to do that. So we've got y equals, just going to go back up, negative 5 x minus 2 squared plus 20. So we're going to expand it, simplify, and put it into standard form. So if you do that, x minus 2 times x minus 2 gives us x squared minus 4x plus 4, and then we have our plus 20. And if we expand that all out, we're going to get 20x minus 20 and then plus 20. So it becomes y equals negative 5 x squared plus 20x. Minus 20 and plus 20 gives us 0. So we actually have a 0 on the end. So what is the y-intercept of this equation? It is, we know it's that last value, which is right here. So it equals 0. Or you could write it as 0, 0 for our point. What does this mean in our real example? This means that that's where the football started. So the football started at a height of 0 meters. So it's actually on the ground, which makes sense in our example because it's when it's been kicked, and most footballs are kicked from the ground at a height of 0. What are the x-intercepts of this equation? And what does that mean in our real world example? So the x-intercepts, again, in the previous lesson we learned how to factor. So we're going to factor this. So coming back from what we had, this is what we had in standard form. So we're going to factor it. If I factor this, I'm going to pull a negative 5x out, and I'm left with x minus 4. And you can check that by just multiplying it out. So the question is, what are the factors, or what are the x-intercepts? So remember, we had to set them equal to 0 and solve. So if negative 5x equals 0, divide both sides by 5, we get that x is 0. And then this one, x minus 4 equals 0, so x equals 4 when we move that 4 over to the other side. So here we have that our x-intercepts are at 0 and 4, which means that the football was on the ground at 0 seconds. So that's the first one. And 4 seconds. So that's the second one. The question might be, how long was the football in the air? Easy, because it went from 0 to 4. It was on the ground at 0 and on the ground again at 4. So it was in the air for a total of 4 seconds. They may ask you, when does the ball hit the ground? Hits it at 4 seconds. Based on the information above, we can easily draw an example of this. So imagine that I'm drawing an example. So we have a couple points to choose from here. These are going to be our seconds, and this will be our height, or h. So here, 1, 2, 3, 4 are seconds. And we know that it's going to go through 0.00 because that was our y-intercept. It's also an x-intercept. And we know it's going to go through 0 and 4 because that's one of our other x-intercepts. The other thing we know from the very first part, where our vertex was, is that our vertex was at +2 and 20. So at +2, the football was up here, and we got our maximum point. So what we can do is say that the football started here, it was kicked and went up to this maximum height of 20, and then came back down and hit the ground after 4 seconds. Okay, so you can easily see how we can take everything that we learned about quadratics and changing from vertex form to standard form to factored form, and use what we learned from that to draw an example or answer questions about our quadratic. Do the practice. Again, if you have any questions, please just send me a message.